Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Happy Valentine's Day, Austin.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. What a special and magical day.
It is indeed, yeah.
Let's start off quickly before we talk about the markets being kind of ugly and a choppy opening under what people are saying is because of the Russia situation, which I strongly disagree with. How was the Super Bowl?
It was great. It was. I mean, it's sad to see the end of football season. Now I go into my depressive state for 6 months and feel very sad. But no, it was great. A great way to wrap up the season. Always entertaining. Huge amount of money would have been made across the gambling industry as well. So that's something that when they release those numbers, we'll definitely dive into that a little bit and see how did this year with more states and Canada as well having legalized sports betting, how maybe that affected the market and stuff. So we'll take a peek at that once we get some real official numbers on that. But yeah, great event, always is. And they're just a little sad for me that football is done now.
Unfortunate, but I watched a little bit of it and it seemed like a pretty good game. But it's good to see big events like that. It's hard whenever you don't have those things for a country to get excited about and out about at. And it's certainly it being in LA, which was ironic to some degree. But it was good to see all the mayor, all the famous people without masks partying, having a great time, and the greatest forced mask place left, one of the strongholds. So the irony there of what's been going on there, I just find it's funny because it does tie into the whole Canada Freedom Convoy, which has spread around the world, and the narratives that the news and the corporate news and the governments are trying so hard to push, but they're having very little efficacy with. Interesting times. And that's what kind of leads me, and we're going to leave that alone because the data has been clear on that for a very long time. If anyone has any interest, and most people that have looked kind of know what's going on.
Exactly.
But the Russia thing, that we're going to tie things into that as well, because quite frankly, I don't see, I've studied international politics. Could this be a war? Maybe. I think it's mainly from both the Ukrainian president and Putin have both stated that they have no interest in that. Things are actually not what the media is trying to push as being. Both have come out strongly urging even Biden to come visit to see that this doesn't need to escalate. But neocons in the U.S. would love a war, and certainly the Democrats would absolutely love a war, especially anyone involved in the Clinton campaign because they hate Putin. They would need this right now because of the total failure of almost every other side going on, and of course the narrative of COVID falling apart for them as well. So it's a very chaotic time. I don't think they have the capacity to go fight anyway, to be perfectly honest, the US, nor do they have the will. They got to get their own act in order before they start running around anywhere else. That being said, perfect time for someone like Putin to keep pushing. So I'm not playing favorites here. This is just diplomacy. If I was him, I'd be pushing buttons and pushing back hard as well. So we're going to see a lot more of that as the rest of the world sees the U.S. as being very weak right now. So interesting times.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that I thought was really interesting was last week, I don't know if you caught the video of it, but there's a journalist, and I wish I could actually remember his name because he did a great job. He was being interviewed at the State Department. They were kind of saying, well, that we've got evidence to support that the Russians are going to, instigate events to provoke us into a war. And he's like, okay, what evidence? And he's like, well, I just gave you the evidence. He's like, no, you just told me that this is going to happen. What were the actual evidence? And so I thought that was very funny, but very encouraging to see some good journalism left out there as well.
Yes, and that's a leftist liberal journalist who was berating him. He was just like, no, you can't just say. It's kind of like, we think there's weapons of mass destruction. It's like, no. You're going to have to give us evidence now because the last decade, it's been nonsense BS. And I won't go to detail about this, but that Durham report is out talking about spying. So all of these narratives that we've heard for a long time are all falling apart, especially in the last 4 years. This Russian collusion and all that fell apart. We know now who was spying from the Durham report. I'll let you go look into that. Of course, you're not going to find that on any mainstream news channel. You'll have to look on the internet for the actual Durham report. But so yeah, this is part of the problem. Is all of these narratives are falling apart for one side of the story, and it's often truth prevails. It takes a lot of effort and money to spread misinformation. It takes an awful lot, and they're finding that having other platforms like Instagram, Telegram, places like this where people can see live video and live video streams of things. It starts blowing away narratives very quickly. Anyways, enough of that. Yeah. But it just shows the chaos that's happening. There's never been such a bigger divide in the West than there is now. Totally. And I mean, I don't want to be like totally blackpilled, but I don't see too much resolve in any of this, because we're not talking about, someone's a Republican, someone's a Democrat. That's not even a conversation anymore. This is significantly, massively ideologically opposed viewpoints and intergenerational viewpoints that it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It would take a massive acquiescence by the left that I don't see they're going to do. But anyways, that just shows the reflection of the market. Plus, we've got the Great Reset going on. We've got markets in chaos. There's levels of debt that are shocking, and all of this tied in with Russia again, because we're talking about energy and natural gas, and Europe having a serious energy problem. Where you can also talk about food. This all rolls into food as well, and we'll touch on that a little bit. And that's why we focus on all these themes, these giant macro themes, is not to be bleak and dismal about life, but it's to acknowledge that the vast amount of the stuff that's coming out is total propaganda and nonsense, and you gotta sift through it and then find the actual data and the actual information out there, and you can find some gems. And Fertilizer, we've been talking about it for a while, has had one heck of a year last year. This year it's going to storm ahead as well. And we just did a video with a company with a Cristiano from Verde Agritech, outstanding company, just incredible, great revenues. They're on track. Their milestones are amazing for this year ahead. We checked out that video because it highlights why it matters. Like this is specifically potash as fertilizer. Why Belarus and Russia matter in this conversation of fertilizer and food. It's very interesting, and of course, Arion Phosphate. Our friend Brian Osteroff is on quite a bit. Talking about these ideas and these topics, the food supply chain, fertilizer. These are the topics with infrastructure that should become sexy in people's minds, because the ones we just take for granted that we've already solved, and we have not. There are significant issues.
Well, yeah, and that's you mentioned Brian, and he makes a lot of great points about, do we want to be dependent on these other regions to have access to these fertilizers and these phosphates that are used to make these fertilizers, or do we want to find a way to be a little bit more self-sufficient, have a supply at home? That's his case that he makes, and I know Verde is more it's a Brazilian thermal potash, but it's a great story. It's a phenomenal company, but it's closer to home than where you'd normally be getting this stuff from in North Africa or over in areas like Belarus, Kazakhstan, southern Ukraine and stuff like that. So it's a really cool story, and it's something that we all need to be focusing on, because like what we've said a million times, you kind of need to eat.
It's people don't understand how critical this stuff is. Now, and there is Nutrien, which is a kind of Chinese Canadian company. They bought up Saskatchewan Potash, which was a huge story. I want to say 15 years ago, it was a big play in Saskatchewan. But anyways, check out the video with Verde. Very interesting. And of course, check out the stock. Look how it's done the last year. And you'll see why we're so excited about them as well. But that ties into the whole, Russian narrative as well, because the U.S. is feeling this kind of crunch now, and there's a lot of chaos, and and it's our job to wade through that and to offer some solutions so people can focus on solving these things in a good way.
Yeah, well, and especially because the rest of Europe is feeling the squeeze of the Russian situation a lot more than obviously we would be over here. But you see, even countries like France are not necessarily a knee-jerk reaction to it, but I think Macron came out and said in the next 5 years they're going to build another 12 nuclear reactors for energy, something like that. I believe it's over the next 5 years. So they're clearly seeing like, hey, we can't be relying on Russia because at any point they can turn the switch on us and we're going to be in deep trouble over here. We need to be figuring out kind of our own approach and stuff like that. But it's really showing there's a lot of moving pieces and parts to this Russia-Ukraine situation that for good reason is, I think, making a lot of the Western Europeans nervous.
Yes. And, when we're talking about natural gas and energy as well, we can look at Goldman Sachs. And it's saying that basically copper is the new oil and gas. They are, they say the case for commodities has rarely been stronger. That's their latest quote as of today. And I think gas prices had hit the highest just this past weekend, I believe.
I believe so.
Yeah. So, we have a major energy crisis, and I think you're going to find like a ton of oil and gas deals coming out very soon. We're looking at some. There's going to be lots of money made there. And once again, this doesn't necessarily have to mean that you don't, believe in the narrative of the greener, cleaner kind of future with electricity and whatnot. Yeah, but that shift has to start and really, really start. But that requires so much mining and so much copper, and specifically that until I see a flow of funds, not only from government and regulation and promotion by some of these, massive, like until I see like LeBron James talking about a copper mine and why it's so good, I don't believe that they're really serious. No. I'm being facetious.
I'll give you an interesting one though. Example from last night with the Super Bowl. Any guess at what the type of commercial that I saw more than any other ad last night? More than beer commercials, more than Subway or McDonald's or anything like that. Any kind of guess?
No.
Electric vehicles.
Electric vehicles.
The most frequently seen advertisement last night, or at least from what I could tell, last night during the Super Bowl. So I thought that was very interesting.
Well, that's a good thing. And, and I like it. I don't mind if there's no big push onto me to hold on to a combustion engine. If you switch to an EV, who cares? Like, it's not the end of the world. The US can still be a lover of cars. But all of this, it has to start. It has to start now. And then all of that comes from copper. It comes from lithium. It comes from all these solutions. Our Arion phosphate, that phosphate can be used in the lithium iron batteries. So you can see how these things all come together. So it's good to see that this big megalith, if you see all these ads and pushing for something, that's a good sign. So, sooner or later, this commodity, push has to hit mining. And when it does, the injection of capital will move these markets in ways that you'll be shocked. So, I don't want to try to prophesize and tell the future, but to me, I just kind of shake my head and go, unless they change the narrative entirely and we just simply go back to oil and gas, it has to happen.
Yeah, you have to go in that route. And speaking of copper, actually, as well, I know you were chatting with Richard Tremblay from Allied Copper last week. We should have a video out early this week, I think, on that. Maybe do you want to catch us up on everything that was going on over there with Allied?
No, I don't want to give anything away. I want to let him say the story. No, it was a great interview. It was a really good interview speaking with Richard. They've had a flurry of activity lately. And this is the time to do it. So the stock's perked up a little bit. We like it because it's a brand new company. It's got a great board. It's got a great team. I've done interviews with Warner Ewell over there as well. So they're very optimistic. And just because when you don't see news from a mining company, sometimes you think, oh, they're not doing anything. The amount of work constantly ongoing, like if you're looking at M&A, you're looking at properties, I mean, you've got boots on the ground doing soil samples in one place and trenching in one place and IP in another place. So there's so much work, and then the crunching of that data. There's so much work that goes on, and then meanwhile, permitting and whatnot. It's nonstop. It really is. So it's a longer time frame of things, and we think Allied Copper has a real significant foothold right now. And it's slow moving, though. I mean, this is not something like crypto that with the volatility going through the roof. This is one to look at and to see where the news takes us. But we're optimistic right now, just like we were with Copperbank, and we still are with Copperbank. I mean, Copperbank was 30 cents when we first started talking about. Today, it's at 90 cents. They've got an incredible team in there right now. They're drilling right now, I think, a 5,000 meter program. So outstanding work there. We like Trigon. We've mentioned Trigon Metals in Namibia as well. So the big fans of what they're up to. And we like Namibia overall. And I'm going to have a video on a good old favorite too of Gratomic, which is a graphite miner. And they've got high grade graphite, which is the type that you need for all of these batteries. So you know, the low grade graphite, it's like your pencil lead, not quite, but ceramics. So it's lots of uses, but I'm being facetious again. But the high grade graphite is what you need for all of the electric vehicles, and that's where it's really cool when people start to see, we're using it in cars, we're using it in buses, trains, and planes, and automobiles. Like everything's being used electric. We start seeing a big industrial grid start changing. People will start to wonder then, okay, what are all the component pieces of these? So right now, we've kind of moved down from the Tesla and the car makers to people kind of starting to think of, well, where can I put my money that is unlooked at, not loved, and mining is the best place for an asymmetric gain.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And you touched on all these very exciting different stories and stuff. We're obviously big fans of Namibia, and what both Trigon and Gratomic are doing down there is extremely exciting. So no, there's tons of great opportunities out there. It's just a matter of we need that market adaptation of it, the market to absorb the story the kind of the same way that we have and understand it, and then you can really see some movement.
Yeah, the last thing I'll kind of mention is that I did mention it with the Build Back Better. There's $5 billion that the government is giving out in grants between $50 million to $100 million bundles, which those are nice bundles to get. Yeah. So they're giving those to battery energy developers. Now, the case could be made, I think, if someone was going to go vertically integrated, which I've heard, like Largo and Bushveld, which are vanadium companies, and there's a couple other vanadium companies that could go this route of saying we're going to go vertically integrated and actually make vanadium redox batteries that right now they're building ones out in California. Invinity, they're the company that's doing it out of the UK. You could, it could be possible that a mining company could go, hey, can I get a $50 million grant? Yeah. Now they'd have to be U.S., of course. They're not going to give it to. Well, they might. I mean, the U.S. did give Bushveld $5 million as a grant, so they might give the grant out to a foreign company. But if you could imagine, if you could take in, well, $5 million is not a ton, but still pretty good. But if you could take in $50 million into a junior mining company without any dilution of shares, that's massive. Yeah. So if we can find ways of getting that kind of cash flow without blowing up the corporate structure of some of these companies, you're definitely going to see that sector take off in a hurry. And quite honestly, people get mad. They think about government intervention into finance. That's been happening for as long as I can remember. I mean, that's all that Amazon was. That's all that Google is, and it's all that Facebook was total. If you sell us the data and give it to us, then we'll work with you. So it's this idea that's never happened before is kind of silly. So I don't mind if it comes to our industry and in our sector, and that's quite frankly what you need. And you need to have a lot of different stakeholders on the same page if you really want to make a go of this thing. So interesting times. And I mean, it's possible. I'm not saying it is, and I certainly don't get to sit around those big tables with those people, but anything's possible nowadays.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And now it's just a matter of kind of a wait and see sort of game is what direction is these cash going to get injected? How are they going to be able to really get the ball rolling on the Build Back Better plan? Who knows? I mean, the Americans are so stuck worrying about Russia. I don't even think they're trying to get their own domestic issues sorted out at the moment. But
yeah,
we'll see what happens. And it's just a bit of a waiting game, but exciting opportunities regardless.
Yeah, so let's see what the day holds and see how the week goes. But yeah, interesting times. We feel strong in our position, and we've got a lot more content too that we're putting in for our subscribers that really kind of stresses where we really see things going, as well as where we're putting our money. And that's, at the end of the day, I'm never going to tell anyone what to do or what not to do, but I will tell people what I'm doing. But you have to be a subscriber.
Yep, that's the key. You gotta be signed up to get the hard intel. Andrew's holding back now.
That's right. My heart has closed.
Yeah. Well, right. Hope everyone has a great week. We're cracking ahead, so looking forward to another great week. Thanks as always, Andrew.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Take care.